I was at the Raleigh North CAC meeting Monday night and found out some interesting information. I want to talk a little bit about that. I also want to talk about CACs and what they are and get in a little bit of that. So the meeting was held over at the Abbott Creek Community Center. And this is an interesting thing with these CACs. There's at one time, I think around 20 of these, and I'll get into the history of what's happened to them today. They were sort of, I'll say, defrocked back with the previous city council administration. And I'll get a little bit of that, but the meeting's not always at the same place. So the one next month, I guess it's always the second, or I'm sorry, third. It would be the second Monday of the month. Each month is third Monday of the month. Would not necessarily be over at the Abbott Creek Community Center. They can't always get the same place all the time. They're sort of at the city's pleasure, I guess. They've got to schedule it each month, and they get pushed in a different location. So in any case, there was about 20-25 people there. In contrast to the Midtown one, I would say it wasn't quite as organized, but it was pretty casual, and issues were run through and discussed. One of the issues in particular was that they're going to put a park somewhere in there adjacent with the Greenway, the Falls River Greenway, and there's some objections on that as to it being too close. I drive that Greenway on my bike, and I'd like to see it stay pretty much pristine as far as the nature is concerned, and not have a park connected or laying right on top of it. Currently, that is a great ride, great walk down there. And one of the things I think that's always been great about Raleigh is that we have certain park lands, greenway lands, that basically have been left as pristine as possible. So that was one of the discussion points. There were two things that came out of the meeting I thought were pretty important. One is that one of the biggest issues that the citizens there look at is zoning and having a voice in the zoning. Now, this is way out North Raleigh, and it's a little bit different than missing middle issues inside the city, but they do have their issues nonetheless. The CAC really brings about a forum that they can discuss these issues in. There are zoning meetings too, but those zoning meetings, generally the people who are notified on that are just the folk, and can come to that, or just the folks who are within 500 feet of whatever the zoning change is. So that was all pretty interesting. Typically, there would have been a Raleigh police officer representative in there. There wasn't one in this, but that sort of leads to what I think that, from my opinion, the second big issue that folks are concerned about is the number of police in Raleigh, that we don't have enough, and that they're not paid enough, and that is causing crime problems. And so in my mind, one of the number one responsibilities of a city is to protect its citizens. To me, that's number one. And we're still in this situation with the police that, oh yes, we're training new police officers, but really, as long as we don't pay them enough, and at the rate that we put them in, and then you have retirements, we're not going to be able to keep up with, we'll never get caught up, in other words. So, and I'm talking about just caught up with the budget amount of positions, but we really need to be at 1,000 police officers, from what I understand, from listening to the police chief and other people who are looking at this. So that is a big concern of the citizens up there. They did mention that there's a listening session for the June budget coming up, and that was something that people are interested in. And these folks in this meeting seem to be very engaged with what's going on through the whole city, but they're also concerned about the particular issues up in upper North Raleigh that affect them. Tim Niles is going to be taking over on leading that group. He's the person who I guess is running Livable Raleigh. I think that if we look at issues in Raleigh, he's probably a good person to come in on that, because housing, as I went out and campaigned, is one of the big, well, as I talked to people, was the number one. The more people were concerned about housing when I campaigned in North Raleigh this last time. And we do have to look at that. Raleigh's growing too fast, I think, but it is growing fast. Growth is good, but when the citizens have to finance it, and when bad zoning policies get put in as a result of this fast growth, things like missing middle, those are things that the citizens, if they're not really paying attention, are going to catch them. And so I think that's probably good that Tim's taking that meeting over, and I'm sure they're going to be looking at zoning issues real closely as we go into the next year. So I was pretty impressed, though, with the fact of the turnout and the commitment. Now, I'm going to say a couple of things about CACs, community advisory councils. They were actually funded by the city back before, and in the last city administration, they cut the funding and essentially disbanded them. Now, that didn't mean that they couldn't keep meeting. It just meant that the city wasn't going to do the mailings. They weren't going to provide a regular location. They weren't going to sponsor in any way or support the meetings. And in fact, one of the things I noticed with this particular group is they can't get the same place to meet every time. They have to rebook it every month. I mean, those are just little sort of annoying things that are being done with this. The city won't really promote them in any way. Now, I will say this, in the Raleigh North meeting, that Megan Patton showed up at the end of it and took questions. I was pretty impressed with that. She's the city council person in District B, and that's good. So city council folks do show up at these. I've seen it also in the Midtown. They show up. Mary Black and Christina shown up at those, and that's good. I'm glad these folks are showing up to them and listening what's going on with the folks. And I surely hope that at some point that they bring them back. We really do need to bring them back. Zoning meetings and things of that nature. There are, meetings that people can attend that of committees for parks and all the various areas of the city. Those are good too. But for citizens to be able to meet and control their own meeting and discuss what the issues are and provide feedback, proper feedback up to the city council, to me is a very valuable thing for the city council, for the city, and for the citizens. So that's my take on the CACs, and I'd like to see what's going to happen with Raleigh North CAC in the future. I'm hoping that it will be able to continue to represent the folks up there, and hopefully more people even get involved, although I was pretty impressed with the involvement in that particular meeting that I was at. So this is Whitney Hill, Whitney for Raleigh, signing off. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button. But also too, I want to hear back your opinions on these videos. And I try to answer back to most of them if they need an answer back. And I appreciate you listening to them. Whitney for Raleigh signing off.